Hi, this is part 2 for the making of the Frozen Crossing series.
Part 2
of Modern Warfare.
Part 2.
So in this part of the making of, we're going to be going over a whole lot of things, such as how we shot it, how we did the effects, things like bullet hits, practical squibs, helicopters, everything. So part 1 and part 2 were written at the same time, and they're both supposed to be under the same overarching storyline. The first set in the snowy mountains, the other set in the dry and dusty inner cities. So for part 2, we decided to shoot in Los Angeles, because while we are from Minnesota originally, we live in Los Angeles right now. So as many of you guys have noticed, for part 2, we definitely stepped everything up. A lot more action, higher production values, we got slow motion breach scene, practical blood effects. All that was possible through a lot of our friends here working in the industry in Los Angeles.
We'd like to give a shout out to our friends James Cisignano, Robert Hooven, and Robert Satari at Think Big Productions. Some of our friends out here, David Muchler of Envision, and Mark Ritchie of Southpaw. All you guys couldn't have done it without you. And Shane Valdez. You know who you are.
Yeah, that's right.
So the cameras we used in part 2 was the Sony EX3, the Canon 7D, and then the Red camera. We used the EX3 and the 7D on the exterior shoots and all the action stuff, and we used the Red cameras for the breach scene and for all the interior dialogue stuff.
It was really great being able to use the Red camera for the shoot because it's the first time we've ever used it. Luckily, we had some friends who actually own the camera and were able to lend it to us for the shoot. So even more so than part 1, we put a lot of attention to detail as far as getting references to the game. They're scattered all around the place.
For example, after Spectre gets 3 kills, he calls in a UAV.
Also, the guy with 2 pistols, not only does he get last standed, but then he gets hit over the head with a stun grenade. I believe that one is called Think Fast. I mean, as the achievement go.
Stop that. So we have deep impact for the door, and a lot of people are big fans of this first-person shot we have where it zooms into the scope of the gun.
This shot was rather interesting to shoot. We composited 2 shots together, one from a wide shot and another from a camera mounted on the gun. And also, by the end, Spectre has gotten enough kills to call in a chopper. You see that at the end. So we got a lot of comments saying, oh, hey, Spectre's gun changes like 3 times over the course of part 2. You see, he's actually using...
One-man army.
Honestly, the SCAR and the ACR look so similar. I'm surprised any of you guys even cared. Since in part 2, everyone is constantly firing their guns, we had to do a lot of gun and bullet effects. Some of them digital, some of them practical. So when shooting exteriors, we used almost all digital hits, because it allowed us to start shooting with almost no setup time. Here's a breakdown of one of the shots we applied effects to. 2 important things to consider are subtlety and quantity. The hits shouldn't be unnecessarily flashy and large, and you should also be aware of what kind of object the bullet is striking. Also, don't cut corners when adding them to your scene. A generous amount always looks better. So to start this off, we're going to add some bullet holes to the bottom layer here. It always looks better when your hits physically change the scene. Now for the debris cloud, I'm going to use a dirt hit and darken its color to match the wood. Nice. Now it's time for some blood. In the past, we used to take smoke and tint it red for blood hits, but now we have our own footage that we filmed. I'm playing it here for a reason. Yep. More on how we made those later. So I'm going to put the blood cloud behind him and in front of him to achieve a sense of depth. And that's... Wait a sec. That cherub still has a face. There we go. Using Photoshop, I made a little chip mark to put over the face, and then added some sparks and smoke later on to sell the hit.
So for part 2, we got ambitious and we wanted to do a breach scene. Now we knew that doing slow motion CG was going to be really hard to make look good.
We've tried everything. We've done firecrackers, we've done air pressure cannons, we've done pesticide spray bottles, we've done homemade ones with like duct tape and rocket igniters.
So we actually put the word out, and a guy by the name of Jeff Scott, a professional stuntman, was kind enough to come over to our shoot and do real squibs for us. We shot with the Red, which gave us 120 frames per second, which is pretty slow. In fact, it's so slow that things can get kind of boring. Also, you'll notice we have like little bits of paper that we would throw into the shot, so there'd just be debris in the scene. Even though no one really knew where it came from, no one really questions it because it's just a big action scene and stuff's exploding. The one shot that has a fair amount of CG in it is when the door explodes. For that, basically, we had a shot of the door, and then we added in a bunch of sparks, a bunch of fireworks, that kind of stuff, a bunch of stock footage from the Action Essentials pack. In addition, there's a CG door that we had on top of it that we just animated to kind of fly forwards. So, we don't use matte paintings nearly as much in the second part as we did in the first one. However, I'd just like to point out that there are no tall minarets or adobe houses in Los Angeles.
Does look like it, there are.
How did you do that? Movie magic.
Only a fool would think there are minarets here.
Hey Sam, what do you think about those toy helicopters we had at the end of the movie?
I thought they're really great. I flew them around for hours before the shoot.
I really like toy helicopters.
We modeled our helicopters based off the Hughes MD500 featured in the game. We created them in 3ds Max based off of some reference photos we used. Then we brought it into a program called Mudbox, which is usually used for sculpting and painting. This allowed us to add details quickly, such as window frames and paneling. Then, using a palette, we are able to add paint, dust, and scratches to it as well. This program is actually really awesome. It's basically Photoshop in 3D. So for the music, a composer named Rich Douglas donated some of his music and time into scoring part 2. You can find a lot of his music in the intro sequence and a lot of it leading up to the breach sequence.
After the breach sequence, Sam actually wrote a theme that takes over from there and did the epic finale guitar,
We used Logic 9, we used a bunch of native instrument stuff like guitar rig and Contact, etc. We used a pretty cool guitar, just an LTD Viper 400 with EMG pickups.
Mail's here. Let's see what our fans have to say about this. Dear Corridor Digital, why did you put a pizza box on the door? Pizza boxes.
Pizza box?
Exploding pizza boxes. Does this look like a pizza box?
See this?
This is our breach charge. It looks just like the breach charge in the game. It is made of 2 pieces of plastic with some
Look at
speaker
this
wire
thing.
and some tape.
Oh,
And it says, grab it here.
Also, we got about 1,000 comments about where we got our airsoft guns from. For both part 1 and part 2, we borrowed a lot.
And for everything else we couldn't borrow, we bought them online from a place called evike.com.
So that's about it for this making of. Thanks for watching this. You guys should make sure you subscribe because we have a lot of projects coming down the line, so we're going to keep these videos updated.
So in a few weeks here, we're going to be going up to Vancouver to shoot a short sci-fi action scene.
We're going to be putting up a bunch of videos about that pretty soon, along with some more new tutorials. If there's any specific things you guys want to see, leave them in the comments below and we'll read them.